Welcome back, everybody. Gaming Grandpa here with the last episode to my tutorial series on the MLS called MLS Explained for Football Manager 23. This is pretty much just going to be 15 tips. Now, I covered a few of these in all the different episodes. I just thought I would tie them all into one final episode. Okay, so tip number one is to make sure you scout for the Super Draft. Now, go to Scouting, Players in Range, and then from here, go to Edit Search, deselect your positions, and under the AND condition, go to Declared for the upcoming MLS Super Draft. Now, obviously, it's not going to work now just because we already had the draft a couple months ago, and I don't think people can actually declare for it for maybe 4 or 5 months. So, but getting close to January time of next year, or as soon as the Super Cup is over, I believe is when you could do it. Go ahead and select this. And then make sure that you turn the transfer off, because players that are declaring for the draft, they can't be transferred. So you'll get every one of them on there, and pay attention to the email that you get that would tell you how many players are actually declared this year. Last year it was 188. Well, currently this year, I mean. So that is going to be how you scout for the Super Draft. Another thing to make sure is that your recruiting focuses are turned off or at bare minimum, and that your scouts are available because they could get through it a lot quicker. All right, so that takes care of tip number one. Now, tip number two, and I've talked about this is a very important aspect of your squad view, your cap impact. All right, if you don't know how to add it, you go to Custom, Customize Current View, got to click on it, and then you'll see I already have it added, but it is called Salary Cap Impact. So what you do is you have to scroll down to the S's, you'll click it, hit add, and then hit OK, and then it will be where you put it at. All right, that's tip number two. Tip number three is actually buying down the salary cap. Now, once you have the cap impact on, select it so that the highest cap impact is up top, and you have to click on it. Now, I'll tell you, I already bought him down, so it's not available. Sometimes you'll see it, oh, for crying out loud. Sometimes you'll see it where it says it's available, but you can't actually buy it down. And that's because I've already bought it down, if that makes sense. So I'm going to find one that I can, and I believe this kid here, yep. Go to Contract, Buy Down Salary Cap. If you have this little hand, that means that you can buy it down. And I could take it technically all the way down to that, and I would use 150,000 allocation funds. I don't want to do that because my salary cap, I have room for it, so it's pretty good already. But you just want to do that on every player that has a cap impact to help buy it down. And once again, if you can register your squad, then you don't need to buy it down. It's only when you can't register and you got to buy contracts down that you do so. Okay, so that's tip number three. Now, tip number four is to get an affiliate club. It's very, very important to do this at the beginning of January. At least I started as soon as I took over the team. They didn't let me till about the middle of January, but it's imperative that you have it at least a month before squad registration starts. That way you could send all the players down to your affiliate club, hopefully on loan, and get them off of your registration. All right, so you go to networking, and it's not available for mine because I already have mine. If you go to board, and it is running extremely slow. You'll notice right here, North Carolina, that's my affiliate club. And it was the beginning of July, or January is when they gave it to me. All right, I even got a senior affiliate. That's not necessary, but your affiliate club is. You want to be able to send your players down, not only for development, but to help to be registering your players. Okay, now, tip number five is to utilize your B team. And what I mean by that is the players that you're planning on keeping, and the ones that I'm planning on keeping are pretty much from here up. All right, so you want to make sure that you offer all of them contracts, senior contracts. I still have 2 that I offered that they haven't accepted yet. And that way, throughout the year, I can bring them up to my main team, let them play a game or 2, and then send them back down, and things are good. So that's what I mean by utilizing your B team. The players that are never going to come up and play, for example, Michael Krieg, and there's a couple of them that are never going to ever play for me. Go ahead and sell them and get them out of there. All right. Eventually, you can have your B team be all the players that you are planning on bringing up to the big team. Alrighty, the next tip, number 6, and I'm not really going to show anything, but this one is talking about trade. Now, your board is going to be very unhappy a lot with different trades that you do. See, they're disappointed with the New York City Football Club trade, and I'll explain why here in a minute. But the tip is, don't worry about what the board wants. You or how they feel. You trade for what you feel is best for your team's future. Okay, that's the next tip. Now, if you go up here to transfer history, go to trades, and I can tell you right now, they're ticked off about this trade right here because I gave up a lot to get Tavon Gray. But the reason I did that is because Nielsen, they came in, Real Salt Lake, with a huge bid for Nielsen. If you notice, I got 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and $950,000 allocation money. I did give up 2 first rounds out of the 3 I got in my third round, which is fine because I got it from that draft anyway, and I still made out with almost $300,000 allocation money and a first-round pick. So I thought I did really well. The board was not happy. But once again, the tip is don't worry about what the board feels. You trade for what is best for your team. Okay. Now, the next tip is about trading. And I'm going to show you a little trick here. And it's the same with transfers outside the MLS too, for the most part. But the luxury about this, I'm picking them because I want to get this international slot. All right, what you do is, once you find the medium that they want, all right, I'm going to suggest it. Oh, for crying out loud, they accepted it, but that's okay. All right, that's good in what I'm trying to show you on the tip. I'm trying to make it, oh crap, I wanted to make it permanent, and I messed up. So go to withdraw offer, which is what I was trying to tell you. As long as they don't outright reject it, you can continually withdraw offer. I want it for permanent. And they accepted it. Okay, here's the trick. Once the team, as long as they don't outright reject it, I mean, they can negotiate it or they could accept it, okay? I basically have traded for a permanent international player slot, which means that instead of 8 next year, they're only going to have 7, and I'm going to have 9 start out with, not counting the ones I traded for 2 or 3 years, okay? This is what your ultimate goal should be. If you're going to have a dynasty save like I do in the MLS, is you want as many permanent international player slots as you can. That way you don't need to trade for them in the future. Okay. Now, the cool thing is, as you can see, I gave around 3 first round picks and $250,000, but they accepted it. So I'm going to withdraw, and then I'm going to try it again. And this is where the tip comes in handy. You could use that withdrawal function. All right. I'm going to try to get them down to as little as I can. And I'm going to change this one to a second round pick, and then I'm going to add $250,000. And see if they want it. Oh, see, they accepted it. So that's good. Instead of giving up 3 first round picks, now I'm only going to give up 2 in a second round and $250,000. So I'm going to keep shenanigling it and keep wiggling it down until they reject it. So say, for example, I add 2 first round picks, a second round pick, and $50,000, and they reject it. That means that the problem is the allocation money. So I'm going to go back in, withdraw it, and then I'll have to try it again tomorrow, because once they reject it, then you can either make an offer, which I don't advise, go ahead and withdraw the trade, which I'm going to do now, and then tomorrow I could come in here and try it again. But as long as they don't reject it and they approve it like that or negotiate it, you can keep maneuvering it as long as you hit withdraw offer and keep coming down until you can get the best deal for you. So that's what that tip is. All right. Now, the next tip, tip number 9, is to check your squad registration repeatedly once January 1st starts. And what I mean by that, I'm already registered, okay? But whenever you add a player or take away a player, you want to make sure you come in here and check to make sure that you still have all green arrows, that you're good to go by adding that player. And if you notice like you're over the cap, then you know you have to reduce some player salaries, okay? That's what I mean by checking this repeatedly as soon as you sign a new player. Alrighty. Now, another thing, the next tip is I'm going to recommend, you see up here where it says 29 players out of 30, I'm going to recommend that you have anywhere from 28 to 29. You don't have completely 30. The reason for that is because throughout the year you might sign more players. And if you're maxed out at 30 and you sign a player and try to move them down to your B team, sometimes it doesn't happen instantly. It takes a day. If that's the case, then you're going to have to waive that player. By keeping it at 28 to 29, when you sign a new player, you can register him and then move him down to your B team the next day, and then now you're back to 28 or 29. You see what I'm saying? So keep that open space. All right, and that takes care of tip number 10. All right, now tip number 11 I think is very important. You want to go to staff, responsibilities, transfer and contracts, and you want to scroll down to St. Louis City 2 right here. Okay, you want to make sure that your head of youth development takes control of finding initial players. All right, and then it doesn't matter here who does that in negotiating contracts. I put my GM, but you want to have the final say so. And what this means is they're the only ones that can offer players youth and full-time contracts. See how they're offering him a 6.25 for this dude? That's not my signing. Otherwise, it would be a regular contract. That's a senior minimum salary, and then that one, well, he's already accepted a transfer, but he's a reserve contract. You don't join up, and that's why it's like that. But what I'm saying is, if you delegate it like that, then your B team will constantly have players in there that you didn't find. For example, if you go to transfers value 0, this dude here, he's one that they found. Matter of fact, this kid is one that they found, and over time, once they've been on your team a while, then you're going to notice that their value goes up. Every now and then you can find a pretty good little gem, okay? And since he's only 22, I don't do anything until they're 23 or 24, and then I decide if I want to get rid of them or not, all right? But that's the next tip, is make sure you delegate responsibilities for your B team. That way they can find you players, because you can't offer anything, but you can't offer full-time contracts. Okay, now the next tip is number 12. It's trade for international player slots early. What I mean by that is the closer you get to March 4th this year in registration, the closer that most teams, or you're taking a chance that most teams are going to run out of international player slots. So the time to get them is the beginning of January, and you get your allocation money allotment. That's the time to start trading for them. You can never have too many. All right, just keep that in mind. You can never have too many international player slots. As you can see, I have 7 extra, and I'm trying to get more, because until you start getting green cards on these players, you can't have enough of them. But make sure you get them early. All right, tip number 13 is to watch the waiver wire. Now, I have to scroll down here a little bit because I haven't found one in a few days. I haven't had one. Remember, I talked about how you'll get emails. Well, for crying out loud, where is one? All right, here we go. Oh, wow, that's March 10th. Today's March 16th, so it's definitely not going to work. All right. Whenever it gives you this message, this is the waiver list, okay? Now, starting tomorrow, the day after you get the email, teams will have 2 days to claim them, and it tells you right here, okay? So in this case, it was the 10th. So the 11th and 12th is the 2 days. So the 13th, if they clear waivers, in other words, if nobody claims them off waivers, they become a free agent. I recommend any player that you're interested in, all right, make sure you go to the transfer and see teams that are interested in him. If nobody's interested in him, don't claim him off waivers. Wait until he's a free agent, because number one, you don't assume his current contract, which he might have a senior contract, and that's why they released him. All right, you'll be able to get him on a reserve contract or possibly a SMS contract, and for cheaper value or cheaper payroll. So that's my tip. If no team is interested in them, let them clear waiver wires before you sign them. If it's a player that you absolutely can't live without, then by all means, put in a claim. But that's my tip, is, you could get a lot cheaper value on these players when you sign them to contracts, and a lesser contract if you let them clear waiver wires. Okay, now the next tip is pretty much standard in MLS teams, is that every year you want to clear out about anywhere from 6 to 8 to 9 of your players. All right. In the MLS, there's a lot of turnover. The reason for that is because players get better, and they want better contracts, and they want more money. A lot of times your salary cap is pretty much at its limit anyway. So by giving another player a higher contract, you might not be able to register players because of that. So that's why you have to have a lot of turnover. So by all means, if you get a really good bid on a player, go ahead and take it. I mean, that's what the MLS is about. I mean, go ahead and take it. And I notice I have a wanted sign on him for transfer. I really don't want to get rid of him because this is my first year and I just picked him up. But that's how you do it in the MLS. All right. Now, the last tip goes into it. And before I get into my last tip, I want to finish up with this one. I apologize for that. But always, if there's a player you want to get rid of, you should always try to give them to an MLS team first, because you could get draft picks, you could get allocation money, you could get more assets that can help your team now and in the future. All right, transfer listing them and sending them for offers outside of MLS should be your second route. Okay, all right. Now for the last tip, make sure you read all your comments in the MLS here before you do anything. For example, I'm going to waive this dude. If I click that "Don't show this message again" button and I hit that, then it's automatically going to waive him. I might have accidentally not wanted to do that. So that's why I'm saying it always tells you what's going to happen with the choice you just made and the impact of it. Okay. So my last tip is make sure you read these comments very carefully. And that way, if it's not what you want to do, back out. All right. And that takes care of all 15 tips. And there's a lot more, but I just wanted to hit the 15 that I thought was the most important. But anyway, guys, this takes care of the tutorial series. Now, the next episode, you're going to meet the team because we're getting ready to start a new dynasty, a new series, a new season. I decided to use my tutorial team, as I said many times, instead of my current team. I only got halfway through the season anyway. That way, it just feels more at home and you recognize these players a lot more. But anyway, leave a thumbs up if you like what I'm doing. Drop me some comments. I reply pretty quickly. And subscribe for more videos. So anyhow, guys, thanks a lot and have a good night.